Maya Carter never thought a broken old piano would change her family's life forever. She was a single mother of 3 kids living in a small rented house in Ohio. Every month was a struggle. The bills piled up like laundry that never got washed. Her oldest son, Daniel, was 14 years old. Her daughter Sophie was 10. And her youngest, Leo, was just 7. Daniel was the quiet one. While Sophie laughed loudly at dinner and Leo ran around the house pretending to be a superhero, Daniel mostly sat by the window. He stared outside. He barely talked. His teachers called Maya twice a month, not because Daniel was bad, but because he was invisible. He sat in the back of the class. He never raised his hand. He never caused trouble. He was just there. He's a sweet boy. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, told Maya one afternoon, but I worry about him. He seems lost. Maya worried too, more than anyone knew. It started on a Saturday morning in October. Maya had gone to a neighborhood garage sale, just 2 streets away. She was looking for a winter coat for Leo because the one he had was getting too small. She found a coat. She also found something she did not expect. An old upright piano. It was dusty and scratched. One of the legs had a crack in it. The white keys had turned slightly yellow with age. The woman selling it, an elderly lady named Mrs. Grant, said it had been sitting in her garage for 11 years. "My husband used to play it," Mrs. Grant said quietly, looking at the piano with soft eyes. "After he passed, I just couldn't bring myself to use it, but it needs a home where someone will love it." The piano cost only $20. Maya didn't know why she bought it. She couldn't even play piano. None of her kids could. But something in Mrs. Grant's eyes made her say yes. 2 neighbors helped her carry it home on a small cart. She put it in the living room corner, near the window. That night, Daniel walked past it 3 times without saying anything. The 4th time, he stopped. He stood there for a long moment. Then slowly, like he was approaching something sleeping, he reached out and pressed 1 key. Ping. The sound floated through the quiet house. Leo looked up from his cartoon. Sophie stopped reading her book. Maya stood in the kitchen doorway, dish towel in her hand, watching. Daniel pressed another key. Then another. Slowly, 1 finger at a time, he started picking out a small melody. It was simple, just a few notes going up and then coming back down. But there was something in it, a shape, a feeling, that made the room go still. Maya didn't say anything. She just watched. Daniel played those same few notes for 20 minutes. Then he went to bed without a word. The next morning, he was at the piano before breakfast. This time, both hands. He was figuring it out on his own. No lessons, no YouTube tutorial, nothing. Just his ears and his fingers finding each other. By the end of that first week, he was playing short songs. Simple ones, but complete, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Maya recorded a short video on her phone one evening. Daniel didn't know she was filming. He was sitting at the piano with the lamp on, playing something soft and slow that she had never heard before. Something he had made up himself. She watched the video 3 times before bed. She cried on the 2nd time. She didn't know what to do with what she was seeing. Daniel had never shown interest in anything. Not sports, not drawing, not reading. Nothing ever seemed to light him up. She had quietly worried for years that something was wrong, that maybe the world was too loud for him, or too fast, or that he had simply given up on finding his place in it. But this piano was different. When I played, his shoulders relaxed. The tight, closed-off look on his face opened up. He wasn't somewhere far away anymore. He was right there, completely present, completely alive. She called her sister Ruth one evening after the kids were asleep. "Ruth, I think Daniel has something. I don't know what to call it, but it's real." Ruth was quiet for a moment. "How long has he been playing?" 9 days. 9 days? Ruth said. "And he taught himself. Every bit of it. The problem was money. Proper piano lessons in their town cost $60 an hour. Maya was working 2 jobs, a morning shift at a bakery and 3 evenings a week at a pharmacy, after rent, groceries, and the kids' school supplies. $60 was not just expensive. It was impossible. She looked Online, she searched for free music programs, community classes, scholarships. Most of the free programs were for younger children or required an audition. Daniel had been playing for less than 2 weeks. He had nothing to audition with. She almost gave up on the idea. But then she remembered something Mrs. Grant had said when she handed over the $20. That piano needs a home where someone will love it. Maya drove back to Mrs. Grant's house on a Thursday afternoon. She knocked on the door, not entirely sure why she had come. When the old woman answered, Maya sighed. I think my son was supposed to find that piano. Mrs. Grant looked at her for a long moment. Then she smiled and said, Come inside. Over tea. Maya explained everything day 9 days, the self-taught melodies. The video on her phone. She showed it to Mrs. Grant, whose eyes went wide and then went soft and then filled up. My husband sounded like that, Mrs. Grant said quietly. Not the notes exactly, but that feeling, like the music already lived inside him and the piano just let it out. She set down her teacup. My husband was a music teacher for 31 years, she said. Before he retired, I still have all his books, all his lesson notes. She paused. I'm 74 years old and I have nothing to do with my afternoons. Maya looked at her. I'm not a teacher, Mrs. Grant said quickly. I can't do what Harold did, but I sat beside him for 31 years while he taught. I know what progress looks like. I know what the basics are. She folded her hands. If your boy wants to come here twice a week, I'll work through Harold's notes with him. No, Charge. Maya didn't know what to say. You gave that piano a home, Mrs. Grant said simply. This is just me returning the favor. Daniel started going to Mrs. Grant's house the following Monday. He was nervous the first time. He sat stiff and straight at her second piano. A nicer one, kept inside the house, and played the small piece he had been working on at home. His fingers stumbled twice. He stopped and looked at the floor. Mrs. Grant said nothing for a moment. Tensei sighed, play it again, but this time don't try to be perfect. Just be honest. Daniel looked up at her. Music isn't about being right, she said. It's about being true. Play it true. He played it again. This time, when his fingers stumbled, he kept going. The whole small piece, start to finish, stumbles and all. When he finished, Mrs. Grant nodded slowly. There it is, she said. That's you. That's what we're going to build on. Weeks passed. Then a month. Then 2. The change in Daniel was visible to everyone who knew him. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, called Maya again, but this time, her voice was different. I don't know what's happened, she said, but Daniel raised his hand in class today. First time all year. He answered a question about a poem and his answer was, beautiful. The whole class went quiet. Maya was standing in the bakery parking lot, still in her work apron. She pressed the phone to her ear and looked up at the gray November sky. He found something, Maya said. Whatever it is, Mrs. Patterson replied. Don't let it go. By December, Daniel had learned 4 complete pieces, real pieces, not simple beginner songs, but actual compositions that had shape and weight to them. Mrs. Grant had moved from Harold's beginner notes to the intermediate ones. She had started teaching Daniel music theory, what the notes meant on paper, why certain chords felt happy and others felt like rain. Daniel absorbed it all like dry ground soaking up water. One evening, he came home from Mrs. Grant's and sat down at the old living room piano. Leo climbed up on the couch to watch. Sophie put her book down. Daniel played something new, something none of them had heard before. It wasn't from any lesson book. It wasn't something Mrs. Grant had taught him. He had written it himself, a piece that started quietly, grew into something wide and full, then came back down to a single soft note at the end. When he finished, Leo said, in his small 7-year-old voice, Danny. That was really beautiful. Daniel turned around on the piano bench, and for the first time in a very long time, he smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached all the way up. Maya stood in the kitchen doorway again, just like that first night. But this time, she wasn't worried. She was witnessing something she had no words for. The moment a hidden thing finally becomes visible, the moment a quiet boy finds the language he was always meant to speak. Daniel, A quiet 14-year-old boy from Ohio discovered a hidden gift for piano after his mother Maya bought an old instrument at a garage sale. Under the informal guidance of elderly neighbor Mrs. Grant, whose late husband was a music teacher, Daniel had been growing quietly for 2 months. Now, December had arrived, and everything was about to change. Maya almost didn't post the video. She had recorded it on her phone the night Daniel played his self-written piece. The one that made little Leo say, "Danny." That was really beautiful. It was 2 minutes and 14 seconds long. The lighting was not perfect. The old piano had a slightly worn sound. Daniel's back was to the camera the whole time. You could not even see his face, but you could feel everything. She watched it again the next morning while drinking her coffee before the kids woke up. Then she watched it a second time. Then she opened her phone's video app, typed a simple caption, and posted Italiano. She wrote, "My son taught himself piano 2 months ago. He wrote this piece himself. He's 14. I don't know the words, so I'll let the music speak." And then she put her phone down, got ready for a bakery shift, and forgot about it. By the time she came home that afternoon, her phone would not stop buzzing. She pulled it out in the parking lot of the bakery, still wearing her flour-dusted apron. The video had been shared hundreds of times. The comments were pouring in faster than she could read them. "I've watched this 4 times. Why am I crying? This child has a gift. Please get him proper training. The emotion in this playing is something you cannot teach. This is real. I'm a piano teacher of 20 years. This boy is extraordinary." Maya sat in her car for a long time. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from something she could not name. That feeling when the world suddenly confirms what your heart already knew but was afraid to fully believe. She drove home. Daniel was at Mrs. Grant's house when she arrived. Sophie and Leo were doing homework at the kitchen table. Maya sat down between them, still in her coat, and opened the video on her phone. Over 6,000 views. In one day, she thought about calling Daniel home early. Then, she decided to wait. She wanted to tell him face to face, calmly, without making it feel overwhelming. Daniel did not do well with sudden big news. She had learned that about him over 14 years. He needed things slow and steady. When he came home at 5:30, she simply said, "Come sit with me." They sat on the couch, together, just the two of them. She showed him the phone. He scrolled through the comments slowly, reading each one. His face was hard to read. It always was. But she saw something shift in his eyes. Not excitement exactly. Something quieter than that. Something like recognition. Like someone had finally called him by his real name. People heard it. He sighed softly. "People heard you," Maya replied. He handed the phone back and looked at the wall for a moment. Then he said, "Can I go practice?" She laughed quietly. "Yes, Daniel. Go practice." Within the next week, 3 things happened that Maya had not expected. The first was a message from a music school in Columbus, about 40 minutes from their town. The director had seen the video and wrote a long, careful message. She said the school offered a young artist scholarship for students showing exceptional ability. She said Daniel appeared to meet every criterion. She invited him to come in for an informal evaluation, not an audition. She stressed, just a conversation and a chance to play. The second was a message from a local newspaper reporter who wanted to write a small story. The third was a call from a woman named Carol Simmons, who said she had been a concert pianist in her 30s before an injury ended her performing career. She now lived 45 minutes away. She had watched the video 11 times. She was not asking for money or anything in return. She simply wrote, "If this boy ever needs real guidance, I would like to offer it. Some gifts are too important to leave alone." Maya read that last message 3 times. She thought about Mrs. Grant, who had said almost the same thing in different words, with a cup of tea and an old husband's lesson notes. She thought about how this whole impossible chain had started with a scratched, dusty piano that cost $20 at a garage sale. She thought about how easily she could have walked past it. She told Mrs. Grant everything on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in the familiar small living room with its bookshelves and quiet ticking clock. Mrs. Grant listened to everything without interrupting. When Maya finished, the old woman was quiet for a moment. Then she looked out the window and said, "Harold always told me talent finds its path. You can block it, or you can clear the road." but it always finds the path. She turned back to Maya. You cleared the road, she said. Every step of the way, you cleared it. Maya shook her head. I bought a $20 piano. You saw your son, Mrs. Grant said simply. Do you know how many parents look at their children every single day and never actually see them? You saw him. That was the beginning of everything. The evaluation at the Columbus Music School happened on a cold Saturday in January. Daniel wore a blue sweater. He was so quiet in the car that Sophie asked him twice if he was okay. He said yes, both times. Looking out the window at the passing fields of gray winter Ohio. The school was a tall brick building with a proper concert hall inside and practice rooms along the hallways. Small glass-windowed rooms where you could see. Students bent over instruments, lost in their own worlds. Daniel stopped walking for a moment, just to look through one of the windows at a girl about his age playing a cello. Maya gently touched his shoulder and they kept walking. The director, Dr. Susan Hawley, was a calm woman in her 50s with reading glasses and an easy smile. She shook Daniel's hand like he was an equal, not a child, which Maya noticed and appreciated. They went into a small room with a beautiful upright piano. Dr. Hawley said, Daniel, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to listen. Play me anything, something you love. Daniel sat down. He played his own piece. The one from that December evening, the one Leo had called beautiful. Dr. Hawley sat completely still the entire time. When he finished, she didn't say anything for several seconds. Then she uncrossed her legs, leaned forward slightly, and said, Can you play it again? I want to listen to the middle section one more time. He played it again. Afterward, she looked at Maya. Mrs. Carter, she said quietly, your son has something that we cannot teach. We can develop it, shape it, give it tools and language and structure. But what lives inside this playing that came with him? She paused. I'd like to offer Daniel a full scholarship. Lessons twice a week with our senior instructor. No cost to your family. The room was very quiet. Daniel was looking at his hands in his lap. Maya opened her mouth, but no words came. She pressed her lips together and nodded. The lessons with the senior instructor, a kind, serious man named Mr. Adebayo, began in February. Mr. Adebayo was Nigerian-born, had studied in London, and had performed in concert halls across Europe before settling in Ohio to teach. He was precise and demanding in the best way. He pushed Daniel harder than Mrs. Grant ever had. Not because Mrs. Grant had failed, but because Daniel was now ready for more. The first day, Mr. Adebayo listened to Daniel play, then said, You play with great feeling. Now we are going to make sure your technique can carry that feeling to any room, any audience, any stage. He placed a piece of sheet music on the stand. We start here. Daniel looked at the music. Then he looked at Mr. Adebayo. Will I still be able to write my own pieces? He asked. Mr. Adebayo smiled. That is exactly the right question. Yes. Always. The discipline we build here is not a cage. It is wings. Spring came slowly to Ohio. Daniel turned 15 in March. Maya baked him a cake, lemon, his favorite. Mrs. Grant came to the small dinner, sitting at the table with Leo on one side and Sophie on the other, laughing at something Leo said with flour still on her sleeve. Carol Simmons, the former concert pianist who had reached out after the video, had become a quiet, steady presence in their lives. She drove over once a month, sat with Daniel, and talked about music the way other people talked about living, as though it was simply what kept a person going. One afternoon, she told Daniel something he would remember for the rest of his life. You know what the rarest thing is, she said. They were sitting at the piano in the living room, the same old scratched piano from Mrs. Grant's garage sale. It's not technical skill. It's not even raw talent. The rarest thing is someone who plays honestly. Someone who lets the audience feel what they feel without hiding, without performing, without pretending. She looked at him. You do that naturally. Guard it. Never let anyone train it out of you. Daniel nodded slowly. Not even Mr. Adebayo? He asked. Carol smiled. Mr. Adebayo knows. That's why he chose you. In May, the the music school held its end-of-year student showcase. Daniel was asked to perform. He would play one classical piece he had learned, a short, careful Chopin nocturne, and one original composition. 3 minutes total. A small stage, maybe 80 people in the audience. Nothing world-changing, except that to Maya, driving there that evening with Sophie and Leo in the back seat, arguing softly about something small and familiar, it felt like the most important night of her life. She thought about 14 months ago. October, the garage sale, a dusty piano with a cracked leg and yellow keys, a $20 decision made on quiet instinct. She thought about Daniel at the window, staring outside, a boy the world kept calling invisible. She parked the car. They walked in together, the four of them. When Daniel walked onto the small stage, the room settled. He sat down at the piano, adjusted the bench in that particular way he always did, slightly closer than most people would sit, and placed his hands on the keys. He played the Chopin first. Clean, careful, beautiful. Then, pause. He looked out at the audience for one brief moment, found his mother's face, found Leo's wide-open eyes, found Sophie sitting very straight, trying to look calm, and turned back to the keys. He played his own piece. The room went completely still. It was the same melody from that December night, but grown now, fuller, deeper, with everything 3 months of real training had added to it. The same honest core, but with more room inside it. More space for the listener to enter. When the last note faded, there was a moment of pure silence. Then the room filled with applause. Leo stood up first, a 7-year-old in a slightly too big button shirt, clapping as hard as his small hands could. Sophie stood up a second later, blinking fast. And Maya stood up last. Not because she was slow, but because for just one extra second, she wanted to hold the moment exactly as it was. Her quiet boy. The one nobody noticed, standing now at the edge of a small stage in a warm room, with his head slightly bowed, receiving something he had always deserved, being seen. The hidden talent was hidden no more, and the family that had changed, the tired mother, the laughing daughter, the superhero little brother, and the quiet boy who finally found his language. They drove home that night with the windows slightly down, the cool Ohio spring air moving through the car. Nobody said very much, but Leo, from the back seat, said one thing. "Denny, can you play something when we get home?" Daniel turned and looked at his little brother. "Yay," he said. "I will."